Sheen Shot.
Yeah, boy.
Welcome back to the Sheen Shots channel and another top 5 Outward weapons. Today we'll be taking a look at the 5 best shields Outward has to offer. Shields are for blocking attacks. No duh, right? But in Outward, all weapons can block attacks, so why use them? Well, they do a few things other offhands can't. For starters, they have a much faster block, which means you can almost get hit and often block at the last second to avoid taking damage. They also block all elemental projectiles such as lightning balls and ice shards thrown from ice witches. These two things make shields very powerful as they reduce a lot of incoming damage you might take without one. But shields also do more. They block for longer without you getting staggered, they apply whatever effect they have with shield charge, and they make you look like a true knight. Unfortunately, we can't put all the greatest shields in the top 5, so the Angler Shield and Astral Shield didn't make it. The Angler Shield is nice for Caldera because it makes you immune to those nasty effects such as petrification that instantly kills you. But it's not going to do anything crazy in other regions. The Astral Shield inflicts the 2 best hexes Scorched and Curse and looks pretty darn cool. But it's really only good for hexes as it has very little impact. 2 great shields, but not for every situation really. Here are the top 5 shields in Outward Definitive Edition that will never let you down. If you take the Militia Shield and throw it into a Legacy chest, you'll get the Vigilante Shield. This thing is literally a railroad track that someone ripped out of the ground and started blocking with. It's misshapen a bit, but pretty cool and deadly looking. But the kicker here is that it grants you 4 protection. So if you happen to mess up and not block a melee attack, you take less damage. Add that 4 protection to a decent armor set and you can nullify some attacks entirely. Also, don't forget that impact is important with the shield because you want to use shield charge. If your impact isn't high enough, the shield charge won't stagger your opponent and he will counterattack almost immediately. This mean looking guy here has 55 impact, which is a really good amount. The Vigilante Shield doesn't do much else, but it doesn't need to. Use it if you want more defense and it'll do its job well. This shield is the Inner Marble Shield. It used to be pretty hard to get your hands on, but now you can kill the last Acolyte in Stone Titan Caves. It's in the middle of the desert and he always drops it. Not only is this a very elegant looking shield, but it deals 56 impact, making it knock things down quickly. Other than that, it's easy to look over, unless you read its description. A shield that's been masterfully made, being meant for guards within a ruler's inner circle. Inflicts confusion on shield charge. Not only is it meant for the most promising warriors, but it inflicts arguably the best status effect in Outward. Confusion. This will make your enemies have 25% less impact resistance. In other words, they stagger much faster, which lets you bully enemies you aren't usually allowed to, like sword golems and shell horrors. Confusion is really crazy and makes the game easier in almost every situation. Bosses, easy. Mini-bosses, easy, and plain old minions, not even worth your time. Fusion is super useful for taking things down quickly or simply getting yourself out of a tight spot. While this status effect isn't hard to inflict with skills or particular weapons, having this ease of access to it with just a shield charge is incredibly valuable. So not only does the Inner Marble Shield look great, but it's fit for protecting a king and helps you become a beast on the battlefield. A personal favorite of mine is the Horror Shield. These weapon types are absolutely insane because they can be crafted early on and then used all the way until the end of the game. Horror weapons are super strong, and a shield might be one of the best among its peers. First off, it's the shell off of a horror's back. You defeated this monstrosity, ripped its shell off, and strapped it to a rope. Then, you punch other shell horrors in the face with their deceased brother. It's brilliant. You also have the fact that it deals loads of decay damage, 24 to be exact, and inflicts extreme poison. Not all enemies in this fantasy world can be poisoned, but the ones that can, die rapidly. One shield charge is enough to kill an enemy as you block and wait for them to perish. Humans can't even stand up to this thing as bandits and mercenaries lose their entire health bar when you smack them. It's got great impact and will be a solid choice for dealing with many enemy types. It isn't always the best option, especially against golems, that's true, but the enemies that are weak to decay die so quickly it's totally worth using. Also, I can't get over the fact that it has spikes on the front, which has to hurt. The horror shield is top notch and might be just what you're looking for your disgraced paladin builds. Of course, we can't leave out the Tsar shield as it blocks the most damage out of any item in Outward. I recently used this thing on stream just because I thought it might be fun, and I was able to block the Royal Manticore for over 5 minutes while kiting and slowly stabbing it to death. This shield hits like a freight train with high physical damage and impact. It also looks sleek with a green gem in the middle that glows ever so slightly. Got a rich look to it, and to be honest, it just blocks. Forever. You aren't going to get confusion or poison from shield charging with it, but it never breaks durability and can block incredibly heavy attacks like they're nothing. The Tsar shield is the ultimate weapon to go for if you are getting knocked down often. Also, if you angle it correctly, it completely covers your character, making it one of the biggest shields. I've no idea how our character is able to lift such an item, but man is it worth it. You kill the Jade Lich and can craft a literal wall to carry around. Imagine you're a bandit and you pull up on an adventurer lugging around a massive hunk of metal. Then, the guy throws it at your partner's face and he flies 10 feet. It's all about intimidation, ladies and gentlemen, and the Tsar shield says move, or I'll move you myself. We've already brought up some really cool shields on this list, but the fabulous Palladium shield tops them all. It's a perfectly circular shield plastered with rainbow colors and a shiny sun decorating the front. It looks, well, fabulous, and adds a bit of color to your otherwise stale build. Not gonna do a ton of damage, no, but it will inflict elemental vulnerability in a single shield charge. Why is that so epic? Well, beefing out on physical damage is great and all, but some enemies just have an enormous amount of health. Especially arena bosses and minions in Caldera can take a lot of hits before dying. So oftentimes it's more efficient and almost required for you to use an elemental varnish that the enemy's weak to. This makes you cut through to their weak spot and kill them twice as fast. Elemental vulnerability makes enemies weaker to elements by 25%. This means they not only die even more quickly to their weaknesses, but lose resistance to what elements they're strong against. For example, Scarlet Emissaries are one of Outward's biggest obstacles. They can be found as regular enemies in Caldera with 1200 health, negative 20% resistance to ethereal, and 100% resistance to fire. They can't be damaged by fire at all, and will die rapidly to ethereal. Hit one with elemental vulnerability, and they will not only take more ethereal damage, but lose their immunity to fire. This doesn't mean use fire, because, well, they're very resistant to it still, but other enemies that don't have such a high immunity, you might gain a better advantage against them. Elemental vulnerability is like confusion. It's always helpful, and makes Outward almost 2 times easier. Just shield bash, and then use a main weapon with a lot of elemental damage. Your opponents will take so much damage, and in Caldera, this makes hard enemies just enemies. The fabulous Palladium shield is an extremely reliable way of inflicting elemental vulnerability, and looks good while doing it. That was the top 5 shields in Outward Definitive Edition. Something like the Horror Shield is of course personal preference, but the rest are all top notch. They each offer something unique that makes them a high quality shield capable of mass destruction. Shields are very powerful in Outward, not only because they're fast blocks, but for how easy they can build up status effects. You can't go wrong with the Tsar or fabulous Palladium shields, and they bring a lot of fun to the table. Don't forget about Zorn's Demon Shield either. It's sort of a substitute for the Tsar shield if you don't want something so heavy, and it's by far the coolest looking shield as well. You've got so many options with this weapon type, and they truly are a blast to mess around with. Do let me know which your favorite shield is down in the comment section, and consider liking the video if you think it was worth your time. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.